Hi guys, my name is Paweł and today I would like to talk about web accessibility. Before we start, if you like content like this, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon. Let's start with a definition of what web accessibility is. According to the 2019 Web Accessibility Survey, nearly 70% of respondents stated that they need to be compliant with accessibility standards in the industry. In my organization, accessibility is very important and it is taken into account at the product planning phase. We have accessibility experts and the internal documentation for how to make web content accessible. But not all companies, especially smaller ones, have access to accessibility experts. There are still some misconceptions about what accessibility is and how we can apply it in our products. Let's start with defining what accessibility is. Mozilla Developer Network has a great explanation that says accessibility means developing content to be as accessible as possible no matter of an individual's physical and cognitive abilities and no matter how they access the web. In another document, they say accessibility is the practice of making your websites usable by as many people as possible. We traditionally think of this as being about people with disabilities, but the practice of making sites accessible also benefits other groups such as those using mobile devices or those with slow network connections. So let's take this part by part. Mozilla Developer Network understands accessibility the traditional way as making the web content accessible to the people with some kind of disability, whether it is a physical or cognitive disability. We can include here cases like people who are colorblind or cannot use a pointer device, like a mouse, because of being unable to control it. For a cognitive disability, we can count cases where a person has problems formulating memory or reading, linguistic and verbal comprehension. Naturally, there are so much more cognitive disabilities, but we won't be talking about them in this video. Besides these two traditional definition of accessibility issues, Mozilla Developer Network recognizes also the context as an accessibility issue. This is less intuitive as it does not connect to a person's disability. It's about making web content exclusive for people who are on a slow connection, maybe for them access to the internet is very costly, or they are using different devices. In this context, you may think that this is a design decision to make content accessible on a mobile device, or a technological decision to make the same content to load fast on a slow network. But it is not. It is in fact an accessibility issue. Think of it this way. If for any reason your users are unable to access the content, it is by definition an accessibility issue. The definition grows big from colorblindness to generally any issue that prohibits a user accessing your content. In today's world, it is very important as exclusion may occur easily without even our intention. Consider this. In developing or underdeveloped countries, the cost of staying connected is often more than 10% of monthly income. I saw it myself that people turn the internet on only when they are using it and then turning it off after they finish. But this is not the only issue. In those countries, internet infrastructure is not as efficient and access to the internet can be limited. Even in the US, outside cities and main roads, you may have trouble accessing the internet. It is predicted that another billion internet users will emerge from developing countries. Developing for the accessible web also means developing for those people. So where to start with accessibility? As always in the web platform itself, each HTML element has its own semantics. We don't really have to do much as long as we use correct HTML elements in the right context. This means, for example, an anchor, the A HTML element, should be used to trigger a navigation. Button, however, is to perform some other action that most likely won't trigger a navigation. The exception here is a form element which is triggered by the submit button and navigation does occur. The point is to learn what is the web platform offering for free and use it to leverage accessibility. Here's some basic accessibility rules. Number 1. Each actionable UI region, the part of your application's UI that is somehow interactive, is by definition focusable. This means it can gain focus when using the tab button. This implies it has a focus state, and in most cases you can perform an action by either clicking on it, pressing a spacebar, or by using any other keyboard key. To make an element focusable, we have the tab index attribute. You use it when you want to tell the browser that this element is focusable. You do this by setting a value greater or equal 0. In most cases, you would use 0 as it implies natural document flow. This means that by clicking on the tab button, you will be moved to the next in the document structure focusable element. By setting values in some specific order, you can control how this flow goes, but usually it is not necessary. Sometimes you may want to remove an element that is by its nature focusable in this flow. In this case, you would set tab index to -1. This way the browser will understand to never focus on this particular element. Number 2. Use proper descriptions of possible actions. For example, an input element should always have an associated label element with a human-readable name. You make this connection between a label and the input by setting up the ID attribute on the input and the for attribute on the label with the same value. This way you create a link between these two elements and the assistive technology will know how to announce focusing on the input element. Number 3. Really never rely on color as a navigational tool or as the sole way to differentiate items. In the UK, according to the NHS, 4.5% of the population suffers from color vision deficiency. This means that even if you see your creation in a way that allows you to navigate it without problems, potentially almost 5% of your users won't see it the same way. To give you an example, this is how you see me right now. Given that you are not having a color vision deficiency, the way you see me now is the way how people with deuteranopia would see me all the time. Deuteranormally is the most common type of red-green color blindness. It makes green look more red. Now you see me as people with tritanopia would see me. Tritanomaly makes it hard to tell the difference between blue and green and between yellow and red. There is more to color vision deficiency, but I think you have now a general picture. Number 4. Use Aria Attributes. Accessible Rich Internet Applications is a set of attributes that define ways to make web content more accessible. It is doing so by defining an additional semantics that web authors can use in their applications. These semantics then are understood by the assistive technology to make it understandable to the person reading the content. For built-in elements, you don't really need to define Aria attributes as they have their own semantics. But if you create widgets from basic HTML elements like divs and spans that don't really have a specific role, then you should use Aria attributes to define those semantics for the widget. To give you an example, consider a custom progress bar. There is a built-in progress HTML element, but let's say that for any reason you need a custom progress bar. You add a div element that is a container for the progress bar. To give a semantic meaning to this element, you would use role attribute. It tells the assistive technology what is the general role of an element. In this case, we would set it to progress bar. This looks good now. Now our screen reader, for example, understands that this is a progress bar and not a meaningless div. But then you would like a screen reader to announce the current progress represented visually by the progress bar. For that, Aria has few attributes related to the progress bar role. These are Aria value now, Aria value min, and Aria value max. This way, our screen reader can give the person more context about the state of the progress bar. There are a number of roles and Aria attributes defined by the HTML specification. You can find it on the Mozilla Developer Network website. Number 5. Don't load another library just because you want to use a single function from it. Even if this library is only 1 kilobyte in size, it adds up. The size of the web grows. According to HTTP Archive, the median size of a website today is over 2 megabytes. That's a lot when you think about mobile users on an unstable connection. Do you know what had less data than that? The Settlers 1 PC game, released in 1993, had 1.7 megabytes in size. Today, every time you click on a link, you download 1.5 The Settlers game. Think about it. Accessibility is very important to create inclusive content or a web application. To enable everyone to become first-class citizens of the web, we have to author our web applications correctly. First of all, use the platform. The web platform has all web accessibility features we need. Use native HTML elements that have accessibility built in, or use Aria Attributes when you create a custom widget from a plain, meaning accessibility transparent elements. Then remember to use native platform capabilities. Fancy web framework is just it, fancy. You may be better off using small helper libraries instead of using big frameworks. Also, use native web platform functions instead of abstraction created by the frameworks. Again, use the platform. That's it for today. Soon I will publish a video about accessibility in custom elements. Subscribe to the channel to get informed when a new video is released. Thanks for watching and please stay safe.